Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Time for another Thrash Metal Monday video. Um, Decided to set the camera back up over here. It's been a while since I taped in front of the record stacks, but just jump in. First up, started off with some Atrophy. I showed this the last record store I went to. The last record show I went to. I picked up some pretty good thrash, including the technically it's the second and third Atrophy because they self-released an album, but half of those songs ended up being on Socialized Hate. So I guess their major label debut, Socialized Hate, and then of course Violent by Nature. Just both killer thrash albums. This band is super underrated. If you run across either of these albums, grab them. I don't know if these were ever repressed. I'm sure they were. Regardless, I was really happy to run across these. I had been looking for them for years. I had them on cassette, and they've gotten really hard to find on vinyl in good condition, and the price is starting to go up, so get these while you can. Next up, a little bit of crossover. Actually, one of the first, they may be the first crossover band, but this has always been a favorite of mine. I bought the reissue, and I did a video about it maybe 8, 9 years ago. I've always loved this album. I was a big fan of New York hardcore, and the mix of New York hardcore and thrash was it was right in the sweet spot for me. So this is Life of Dreams, Crumbsuckers. Fantastic album. If you're a punk guy, if you're a New York hardcore guy, if you're a metal guy, this is one worth checking out. Or a thrash guy, this is definitely one worth checking out. Just one of those classic albums that everybody should have in their collection. Really good. And the reissues of this are really good too. The only bad thing I had to say about the reissue was the artwork wasn't as sharp as it is. It was kind of a crappy scan, if I remember correctly. Next up, really happy to see these later albums getting pressed. This is Green from Forbidden. I think I just need one more of their albums. I don't know that this one was ever pressed to vinyl until this one. It may have been. But their first two had gotten super hard to find, and the prices were in the high $100 range. So I was glad that those got reissued. Unfortunately, I went out of town, and this one got left on it. I guess you can't really see it in the video. It's kind of, the whole record's kind of wavy because it got left on my front deck, or my front porch, and got soaked. And I probably could have sent it back and got a replacement, but it was my fault, and I don't want to screw the company out of their money, you know what I mean, when it was something that was out of their control. Anyway, next up, this one is Minier. It's Greg Minier. This is Retooled. I've talked about this one before as well. So speaking of crossover, Greg Minier was the singer. I mean, he was the main guy. Oh my God, Behind the Crucified, which if you got into them with their first single, it was straight up punk. They did their first full length, and they had moved into the crossover. They have a second album too that I've never been able to find a nice copy of, that I'm still looking for, but I've heard that one's straight up thrash. Well, then about, was it 10 years later? I don't remember when this was originally released. Minier put out a solo album, and I saw it, and for years I saw it and just kept passing up on it because I didn't want a solo album. I wasn't expecting this to be a thrash album. I thought it was just going to be like a, I don't know, like a bluesy rock album or something. But it's straight up thrash. And what happened with this, the reason it's called Retooled, is I guess the original album, there was no bass on it. So he actually went back into the studios and retooled it, basically added bass to it, cleaned up the mix, and did a really good job on here. And it's on vinyl for the first time, which is nice as well. So I do recommend picking this one up. If you're a Crucified fan, if you're a thrash fan, this is a great one to have in the collection. Next up, not really thrash, but I kind of put them in the same category. I hadn't listened to this album in probably 20 years. I loved it at the time. When it came out, I thought it was so aggressive and so raw. And it's funny because when I listen to it now, I feel like it's kind of dated. I don't think it has that rawness. And it sounds very primitive. Like primitive metal, primitive industrial, which there's something cool about that as well. I still like it, and it was just a different experience listening to it, 30 years after it came out. When was this? Yeah, 94. So yeah, coming up on 30 years. But this is Point Blank from Nailbomb. I love this album cover. Just a classic, classic album. And again, industrial metal. You had Max Cavalera and I don't remember where Alex is from, and Alex Newport. And most of the guys from Sepultura played parts on this as well. Just really good album though. If you haven't checked this out, it's definitely worth checking out if you're into that 90s industrial metal. This is more aggressive than most of that is, just being that, it's Max Cavalera. But fantastic album. That's the MOV pressing that just came out. You can find this for like $20. I think I got this for 15 on sale on online. Next up, I've talked about this band as well. Think This from Toxic. Toxic, I can't remember where they're from. I can't remember if they're a US band or not. I feel like they are. But this is one of the recent Massacre Records reissues. They've done all of the Toxic albums, and they have a new Toxic album as well that just came out. Kind of that second tier thrash, though. I've always really liked these guys. I haven't heard their new album, so I don't know if it's the traditional sound, but just killer political thrash. If that's what you're into, check it out. Speaking of Sepultura, I ended up pulling this one out. So I was getting amped up. I was supposed to go see Cavalera about 2-3 weeks ago. I was really excited to see them. I saw them last year, and they were fantastic. They did the Beneath the Remains album, and what is it? And Arise. I'm looking at the drumstick up there because it says it on there. But they did the full Arise album and the full. Damn, I just did it. Beneath the Remains album. This one was supposed to be Morbid Visions and Bestial Devastation. Everybody I know that went said it was amazing. I'm really disappointed that I wasn't able to go. What happened was I spent the whole day working in the yard, and then I sat on the couch and dozed off. And when I woke up, I took a shower and went to bed. I totally forgot about the concert. And what's funny is I was talking about it earlier that day, being excited to go there, and then just totally zoned it out. So I've seen them every time they've come to Atlanta. I've seen them 3 times as Cavalera. So it is what it is. I really would have liked to see them do those 2 albums, but I'll live. But I ended up pulling up Arise, and I gave this 2 or 3 spins. This is one of the recent reissues. I think this is one that you can get through Rhino on orange vinyl. They did really good on this. It's a deluxe edition, which is why I bought it. This is actually the only, I believe this is the only one. I thought I had an original pressing of this, and my pressing of this is actually from like 5 or 6 years later. So this is one I'll be looking for an original of, but just a 10 out of 10 album if you guys haven't checked that one out. Next up, a little bit of Heathen. I showed them in the very first Thrash Metal Monday album or video that I did. And I meant to listen to this album too, and I got sidetracked with work. So I went ahead and pulled this and gave it a few spins. This one's actually also an MOV repress. MOV's been doing really killer lately. A lot of thrash, a lot of really good metal. So I hope they keep that up and doing albums like this that are getting kind of hard to find. But this one is, I want to say this one's like 88 or 89. Oh, this is 91, so even later than I was thinking. But Heathen, just saw Heathen a couple months ago. They were fantastic live. They're still killing it. Their last metal was more straight up metal than thrash. But Victims of Deception is just a classic album worth grabbing. And then last but not least, one of the best bands that I was turned on to recently. I was turned on to them about 2 years ago. Actually, I think it was a blind buy. I blind bought their first album just because it looked kind of cool, the album art. This is their new album. This is definitely a top 5, 10 albums of the year so far. But really killer crossover thrash. They're getting more away from the crossover and going more towards a straight up thrash at this point. But this album's a 9 out of 10. It's fantastic. This is War Remains from Enforced. This is, I can't remember if this is their third or their fourth album. I only have the first and this one so far. They had a 2022 album as well. But these guys are so fantastic. If you like Power Trip, this is kind of, these guys are stepping into the Power Trip void. I would have loved to see Power Trip and Enforced together. I believe they did tour together at one time. But very much the same vein as Power Trip if you were into them. Just a fantastic album. And again, one that you really need to have in your collection if you're a thrash or crossover or punk guy. And that's it, guys. Keep this one short and sweet. I hope everybody's doing good. Take care, and I'll see you soon, VC. Later.